Well, for more, I'm delighted to say the editor of Football España, Rory Barlow, is with us. Great to see you as always, Rory. I mean, in footballing terms, there were moments to celebrate and enjoy last night from a Real Madrid perspective, weren't there? But it's obviously not the result they wanted. So how is it being talked about this morning?
Pleasure, Amanda. Yeah, there was a good headline from Diario AS, one of the main sports papers here in Madrid, that said it wasn't a sackable performance. And I think that kind of hits the nail on the head. There was an appreciation of the effort put in by this Real Madrid side and an acknowledgement that with that level of intensity, with that kind of brio that they showed last night, they will win a lot of games.
Saying it wasn't a sackable performance or result, but that phrase is still very much there, isn't it? I mean, how much danger do you think Xabi Alonso is in real terms?
He's certainly backpedaling towards the cliff. I mean, it's worth reminding people that this time last week, there was talk of there being kind of a turning point. They had their best performance of the season against Athletic Club, but that inconsistency that they showed against Celta Vigo over the weekend, I think the next three games are going to be crucial. Alaves, the Copa del Rey tie against Talavera, lower league opposition, and Sevilla in La Liga. The deadline has been brought forward. Beforehand, it was broadly being spoken of as the Super Cup in January would be the point at which Real Madrid would reassess things. Now it looks like, and from reports from kind of the most reliable reporters on Real Madrid, it looks like those three games, Xabi Alonso will have to get results and performances in order to convince the Real Madrid hierarchy that he is kind of moving in the right direction.
Do you see a way back? When this weight of momentum and the noise starts building, is it salvageable for a manager in Xabi Alonso's position?
Yeah, it's difficult. I mean, if you look at kind of players, the way that they were speaking last night, Jude Bellingham, Raul Asensio, Rodrigo Goes and Thibaut Courtois all came out with kind of very strong messages of support. Courtois said working to the death. Bellingham said he has a great relationship with Alonso, and that there have been kind of positive talks in recent weeks that they seem to be getting closer. And I think you saw that last night against Manchester City, that this is a more committed and a happier dressing room than we saw a couple of weeks ago. The flip side of that is that we kind of referred to it a few weeks ago, that there was a kind of a nuclear alliance forming, that the weapons were kind of back on board in terms of Vinicius, Mbappe, Bellingham. These stars are starting to kind of really put their shoulder up against it for Alonso. But having said that, we are seeing Alonso compromise a lot on what his original game plan was. And with that, it's kind of a riskier and so far less effective plan in terms of what he's doing tactically. And that's played out against Manchester City and Celta Vigo, but we are seeing a more united front from the Real Madrid dressing room.
Yeah, and there does seem to have been something of a shift in tone in that, doesn't there? That perhaps not all the blame now is heading in Alonso's direction, but an understanding that so much of this is down to the players and what they are doing on the pitch.
Yeah, I mean, Raul Asensio had an interesting phrase last night where he said, you could see tonight the change in attitude, which I think in itself is telling because there was a change in attitude, but also on the other hand, it's why is it taking so long? We're 4 months into the season for Real Madrid to start performing like this and start committing like this. I think if you pop the hood of any football team that's not functioning well, it's unlikely that you'll find just kind of one bolt that is kind of needs twisting, and that's going to fix everything. And I think Alonso is kind of adjusted to his team. He's made those compromises that I just kind of mentioned. But with that, we are starting to see a side that looks a lot more like Carlo Ancelotti's Real Madrid. And I think increasingly what we're starting to see as well is people looking at this squad, looking at Xabi Alonso, because they've been new signings. There's been a change of manager, and there's not been dramatically different results. I think people are starting to look at it and think perhaps this squad isn't quite complete. Perhaps there's, I would contend, unbalances within that squad. And yeah, those holes that I was talking about, I think the Real Madrid board have a little more to answer to than they did in the summer.
Interesting, particularly heading into this January transfer window. And of course, it's not so bad. I mean, in terms of La Liga, they're only 4 points off the top, aren't they, and Barcelona? So it's hard to sit here now and ask you this, but I am going to. What do you think? Will Alonso be in charge when it comes to the next Champions League match day?
If I were to wager it myself, I think the feeling is yes. I mean, Alonso has a series of tests coming up that he does need to pass, and I don't think they'll be easy. I don't think we'll be singing his praises this time next month when Real Madrid return to Champions League action. That said, I think one of the things to, again, kind of emerge out of the water on the horizon in the last kind of week or so as we start to talk about Alonso potentially being dismissed is that what are the other options here? I mean, Alonso, let's not forget, was one of the most kind of heavily courted managers in Europe. Bayern Munich, Liverpool all made kind of a play for him. And so if you do move on from Alonso, what's next? And I think that's the question that perhaps has backed the Real Madrid board from a more drastic decision after a run, as you say, of 2 wins in just 8 games.
Yeah, and of course, what happens next is so dependent on what happens next elsewhere, isn't it? I mean, talk of Alonso and Arne Slot and that return to Liverpool, then Jurgen Klopp's being talked about as a potential successor at Real Madrid. But yeah, fascinating to see the next couple of weeks. Rory, as always, thanks very much indeed.